sun is bright and early in this season, and it might be the time to get your pair of sunglasses out from wherever it's been hiding. In this week's video, I'm sharing how to sew an easy eyeglasses case. You can use this to keep your sunglasses or your regular glasses. The final measurements of this case is 7 by 3 inches in size. I used 2 straps to close the case, but first I thought of using plastic snaps, assuming it's easy. But only then I realized I need to buy snaps and more tools to complete it. So I went with straps, and I actually like how it turned out, because it gives me something to hold on to by just making a knot. A simple and practical trick. Now let's go ahead and see how to make one. Starting from fabric measurements, you'll need fabric for the outer layer, inner layer and a middle layer to work as a bit of cushion. For the outer layer, I'm using 2 fabric pieces measuring 4 by 8 inches in size. It's the same measurements for the inner or lining fabric piece, 2 pieces measuring 4 by 8 inches. All the ones I'm using here are pre-washed and ironed cotton fabric. Now I needed an interface with a bit of cushion. The ones I got are too thin, and I didn't want to buy something entirely new only for this project. I already had an old sweater I cut for a similar purpose, and I got 2 pieces from that to work as a middle padded layer. These are the same size as the inner and outer layers, and you'll need 2 layers. I'm using straps for this glass case. For that, I have cut 2 pieces of cotton fabric measuring 1.5 by 8 inches. Assuming you have all other necessary tools, let's get to sewing. I'm starting with straps. Take one out of 2 pieces of fabric, and in case yours have a right or wrong side, place the wrong side up and fold about a 1/4 inch towards you from one of the narrow sides. Now give it a little press using an iron. Since the other end goes inside of the glasses case, you don't need to worry about that. Then fold the fabric in half vertically and give it a press. Unfold the fabric and you can see a crease in the middle like this. Now starting from one of the sides, fold the fabric piece to touch the middle crease and give it a good press. Then move to fold the other side and press. Again, fold the strap in half vertically, and this way you are hiding all the raw edges nicely. Give it a good press. Use a pin to hold the fold and do the same with the other one as well. Finally, we are going to sew straight along these straps. Try to sew closer to the opening end and always do a little back stitch at the beginning and at the ending. Straps are not necessary if you don't want any. I have also seen many people use plastic snaps. Only use what works for you. Since this is for my personal use, I'm going to go with straps. Trim the thread at the end and move to the next one. As I mentioned in some of my videos, I have a basic sewing machine, and because of that, I adjust things according to that. For instance, I start to sew from the unfolded end of the strap instead of the folded edge. Otherwise, the difference in thickness makes thread jam inside, and it makes things difficult sometimes. I have also seen some people using a piece of thick board behind the footer to balance the thickness. I don't think this is relevant for all of you, just a little trick for the people with a basic sewing machine. We are at the end of our second strap and do a little back stitch to end the sewing. Trim all the threads, and now this is how both straps look at the end. As I told you earlier, I'm using a bit of cushion for this sunglasses case with a thicker middle layer. Since this is not a regular interface, we can't iron and stick that to the fabric. Because of that, I'm going to place the outer layer on top of the middle cushion layer and sew them together first. A bit of quilting to keep things together. I'm using a simple pattern, and for that I'm going to draw diagonal lines spacing 1.5 inch across the two outer fabric layers. This is a heat erasable fabric marking pen, and you can easily get rid of these marks by simply ironing them at the end. You can also draw lines in the opposite direction as well, and there are more ways to draw patterns as you prefer. But I'm going to draw a simple pattern like this. Since I'm not much of a quilter, I don't want to make things complicated. After drawing patterns on both outer layers, place those on top of the thicker padded layer. Use a couple of pins to hold the two fabric layers together and make sure they are aligned as well. Then we are going to do top stitching along these drawn lines one by one. I adjust the stitch length of the sewing machine closer to 3, a little longer than the usual, just in case this will shrink the fabric. I don't make these ones for selling. Because of that, I always try to use things I already have. As I mentioned earlier, this padded layer is from an old sweater. I also use that for making a pot holder as well. Since I didn't have any plastic snaps, I used fabric straps to close the sunglasses case. What I want to say here is, if you buy new things for each and every craft project, it adds up even without you knowing. So always try to use whatever you have in hand first. Even in case you mess things up, it will also lift up that burden of not ruining a new fabric. I have to say, sewing along this line is very satisfying, and this project really considered me to learn more about quilting. After quilting both layers, trim all those hanging threads. Also, make sure the underneath padded layer is aligned with the top layer before going any further. If not, trim those parts out carefully. Since I have used a heat erasable fabric marking pen, I'm gonna iron both outer layers to get rid of those markings. These heat erasable pens always come in handy when you are doing these kind of projects. The quilted two outer layers are all looking good at this point. Next step is attaching straps. Keep the right sides of the two outer fabric layers facing up. Then mark the midpoint at the top opening side. You can use a ruler to mark the midpoint 2 inches away from both ends, or you can just fold the fabric in half vertically and simply find the midpoint. Since this fabric has a pattern, I already know which side is gonna be the top side of the glasses case. But if yours doesn't have a particular pattern, you can mark from either one of the two narrow sides. Then place the unfolded end of one of the straps on top of that marked point. One of the lining fabric pieces goes on top of that, and at this point both fabric layers are facing right sides together. Use a pin or a clip to keep the strap and two layers in place. You can leave a small part of the strap hanging out like this. We are going to sew along this line later. Now do the same with other strap and two fabric layers. It's like making a sandwich. Outer layer, strap, and inner layer facing right sides together. Starting from one of the ends, sew along the line, leaving half an inch seam allowance. Remember to do a little backstitch at the beginning. Remove the pin as you go and hold the strap in place while sewing. Since we need an extra strength at the strap area, I would like to backstitch that area and sew along again to give a bit of strength. As always, do a little backstitch at the end and finally trim the thread. Now do the same with the other one as well. For any of those who checked out our book sleeve tutorial, this one won't be much different to that. I'll leave the link for that one in the description. We are at the end of our second one and go ahead and trim all the threads. Since everything is secure now, you can also trim the hanging strap parts as well. Now it's time to assemble everything together, and before that, I'm gonna give a little press to keep both layers nice and flat. On the wrong side of the fabric, spread the seams apart and give it a proper press like this. It will help you to sew smoothly by making things even. Do the same for the other one as well. Now place one layer on top of the other layer facing right sides together. Another important thing is two lining fabrics and two outer fabrics have to be aligned with each other as well. Use a few pins or clips to keep everything in place. You can use the mid connecting line as your guide to check whether everything is symmetrical. Try to keep the straps out of the way by simply folding them. Otherwise, those can be caught while we are sewing around. We need to leave a bit of space to turn the right side out at the end, and it has to be from the lining fabric area. I'm gonna mark about 2 inches of space at the bottom of the lining fabric area, and you can also mark it even from the side areas as well. Either way, it has to be somewhere in the lining fabric. Now starting from one of these mark points, we are going to sew all the way around until we reach the other mark point. Leave the marked space as an opening to turn the right side out. This time I'm leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and remember to do a little backstitch at the beginning. Remove the pins as you go, and I usually slow down when I'm reaching the bulky mid area to keep things smoother. If you have an advanced sewing machine like a Juki machine, things will be much easier for you. Raise the foot and pivot when you reach the corners, then lower the foot and continue again. As some of you may know, my small business is mostly about felt crafts and some embroidery work. But I like to sew some day-to-day things using my sewing machine. All of these are for my personal use. Now if you are sewing these for sale, you might need to buy proper quality batting as the padded layer. Stop sewing when you reach the other marked point and do a little back stitch to secure your stitching. Finally, trim all the threads. Now trim all 4 corners in the shape of a triangle to reduce the bulky parts after turning the right side out. Be careful not to damage any of the stitches while you are doing so. We are almost at the end of our project and now start to turn right side out using the opening we left. This part always takes a little bit of patience and time, but it's not much of a big deal if you have left enough space to do the job. Good thing about this project is it only requires small pieces of fabric. You can easily use remaining fabric pieces from your previous projects. Mine is from a napkin project and I sewed 4 napkins from this outer fabric. Still got a little bit more even after this one. When you reach the last bit of this process, you can use something with a blunt end to poke out 4 corners without damaging the fabric. Give it a little press using your hand to keep the crease. Now it's time to enclose the opening we left. We are going to do a top stitch along this opening end closer to the edge. Make sure the opening is properly enclosed by sewing closer to the opening edge. I think now you can realize why we left the opening on the lining fabric side. Because this part goes inside of the glasses case and it won't be visible to the outside. As always, do a little back stitch at the beginning and at the ending. Finally, trim all the threads. With that done, we are at the end of our sewing project and let's give a good press to keep everything nice and flat. There is one last thing and you can now enter the lining fabric bag into the outer fabric bag like this. You can use your fingers or something like a wooden rod or even a small ruler to push the lining bag towards the inside of the case. Since I'm not going to sew around the opening end of the case, I'm going to give it a little press like this. I think it's too narrow and thicker to sew at this point. Now this is how our cute sunglasses case turned out and I hope you'll give it a try. You can even use this for your regular glasses as well. It's more secure since it has a strap to make a knot. You can even make a little bow knot too, and it'll be easier to carry even if you're going on a walk. Let me know what you think of this project and I would love to know about your current sewing projects as well. Thank you all for watching and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye for now and I'll join you in the next one.